okay? So today, kiddos, again, we're talking about angle addition postulate. This is very similar to something we learned earlier in the chapter, which was segment addition. And basically, it's the idea that if you have an angle, you can separate that angle into smaller angles, and all it does is break the angle up into smaller pieces. That's it. Okay, so you can add those smaller pieces up, and they'll add back up to the original angle. Okay, so as a reminder, here's a review of segment addition. This is what we learned earlier in the chapter. Okay, so when you think of segment addition postulate, all they're saying is that if you look at this line segment, JKL, you can think about that as three different pieces. We have JK, we have KL, and then the whole thing is JL. So basically what this is saying is if JK was like, let's say this is 8, and KL was 2, then what would JL be, the whole thing? It would be 10. And the reason we know that is because if JK is 8 and KL is 2, we add those numbers together and that would make 10. Okay, that's all segment addition is saying, is that you can take the small pieces, add them together, and then you make the big piece. Okay, now everyone understands that, and it's like, okay, that makes perfect sense until we start putting in variables. That's when students start to kind of fall apart a little bit. But really, it's the same exact idea. You add the pieces together, no matter what they look like, and you set them equal to the whole length. Every single problem, okay? So when you're setting up equations today, just remember that. You add the small pieces together, and they add up to the whole piece or the bigger piece, okay? So angle addition postulate is basically saying the same thing. It's stating that if you want to add the measures of adjacent angles together, you can, and they just add up to the whole bigger angle. So if you look at this angle, the bigger angle is RST. So again, follow the letters R to S to T. That's the bigger angle. Okay, so I'm going to color code these bad boys. So if I did RSV, we're going to say is here. I'll put that in red. So RSV, you guys can all see those those letters, okay? And then I took VST, which is this angle right here. If I add those together, then it would make the entire angle from R to S to T. That's all it's saying, okay? So it's the same idea, right? If this was 8 and this was 2, then the whole angle would be 10. Same idea, okay? If you take the blue wedge, which is 8, and you add the red wedge, which is 2, then that just adds up to 10. That's all it's saying, okay? So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Now, again, couple problems with just regular numbers, super simple, and then we're going to get into the variables. But just remember, no matter what the problem looks like, it's the same idea for every single problem. You add together the smaller pieces or the interior angles, and they add up to the whole angle itself. Okay, so we're going to jump into some examples, but before that, we do have one definition. Okay, angle bisector. Okay, without looking up at the screen, even though you're all looking at it, do you remember what a bisector is? Anyone remember off the top of their head, bisector? So a bisector means it cuts something in half. Okay, to bisect something is to cut it in half. So an angle bisector is just saying that it's literally cutting the angle in half. Okay, so there's two ways we can approach this. The first way is saying if DB is the angle bisector, right? It means that it cuts the angle in half. So if this is 5, what does the other half have to be? It has to be 5 because this is cutting it in half. So they have to be equal to one another, okay? Another way that we can think about it, okay? So if I were to say that this side was 7, then what would the whole thing have to be? 14. Very good. Because if this is 7, then we automatically know that this side has to be 7, and 7 plus 7 is 14. So there's 2 ways that you can kind of think about this, okay? But just remember, if you know that the ray here is a bisector, then it means that both of these sides have to be congruent, or they have to be equal. Okay, so that's, again, in geometry, how those definitions are going to come in to help you and be very important. Okay. Now, that definition will come back in another example in just a little bit, but let's get started with some easy examples. Let's just talk about some basic angle addition. Okay, so this is just going to be numbers only. Now, remember, in geometry, it's very helpful if you label your pictures. That's why I always encourage you to have paper out in front of you so you can draw the picture yourself, because it's hard to kind of imagine these things in your head without actually drawing the picture or drawing on something. Okay, so what I do on the board is I draw on the picture. That's what you should be doing when you do the homework. You should be sketching the picture and then drawing on it like I do when I do the examples, okay? That doesn't mean that when I do examples in class, you have to sketch along with me, but just when you're doing the homework, you should do the homework the way I do the notes. Draw the picture out, draw on the picture, make notes for yourself. All of those things are really, really smart ideas. Okay, let's read through this. It says, find the measure of angle BQD. Okay, so BQD, I'll do this in red. Okay, so BQD is the big angle right there, that whole angle. Okay, it says if the measure of angle BQC, so BQC, I'll do that in purple. BQC is 35. Okay. And CQD, I'm going to run out of colors. I hate that you can only have 3 colors up here at a time. Okay. CQD is 65. Okay. So easy peasy. If I want to know the whole angle and I know that one part of it's 35 and the other part is 65, then what do? I just add them together. So I have 35. I'm going to add that to 65, and that will tell me the whole angle. Okay. And what is 35 plus 65? 100. So the answer is 100. Again, I'm just adding the 2 pieces together. Think about it like pizza. I always like to think of pizza anyway. So if I took these 2 pieces of pizza, I'd be eating 100 degrees of pizza. I want the whole 360 probably, but just 100 degrees is fine. Okay. So you add together the little wedges and it makes a bigger piece of pizza. Okay. Any questions about that one? Okay, let's step it up just a little more difficult on the next one, because we're going to know pieces and we have to figure out what the missing piece is. Okay, everyone good to go on to the next one? Okay, now remember, kiddos at home, I will post this lecture later. So if you are writing notes at home and I'm going a little quick, you can always tell me to slow down, but just know that this lecture will get posted later so that you'll be able to watch it on your own time. Okay. Find the measure of BQC. BQC. So BQC is actually this one right here, this little piece. Now remember, if you don't know where the angle is, look at the letters and follow it with your pencil. B to Q to C is this little angle right here. If angle CQD is 80, CQD is 80, okay? And BQD is the whole thing if BQD is 120. Okay. So if I know that part of it is 80 and the whole thing is 120, how can I figure out the missing piece? I subtract. So I want to do the 120 that I know for sure. I'm going to take away that piece that's 80, and whatever is left over has to be the smaller piece. So 120 minus 80, very good, 40. Okay, so this little angle right here, BQC, is 40. Questions about that one? Easy peasy, right? Okay. Those are the first two problems on your homework tonight, just like that. So as long as you understood those examples, your homework tonight, you got 2 of them done. Okay, yes. So it tells me right here that BQD is equal to 120. So if I look at the letters, BQD is the whole thing. Cool. Okay. Sorry, it's hard to use colors on here because I can only have 3 colors at a time. I wish I could do unlimited, but got to keep switching. Okay. Now we're going to get into some variable stuff. Okay. But that doesn't change how we do these problems. It's still the same setup for every single problem. You add together the 2 angles that make up the bigger angle. Okay. So example 3. Now we have our definition here. So if RQ is this ray right here, this right here, this is RQ. It says if RQ bisects angle PRS, find the value of X. So what do we remember about bisects? It's half. So what do we know about 6x plus 1 and 85? They have to be the same. They have to be the same. So basically what we're saying is that this side right here has to be equal to 85. That's what bisects means. That if we know one side, the other side has to be the same. Okay. So all we're going to do is take 6x plus 1 and we're going to set it equal to 85 because one side being 85 means the other side is also 85. Okay. Because of the word bisects. And now we have an easy 2-step equation. So I'm working backwards. How do you get rid of plus 1? Subtract 1 from each side. 6x comes down. 85 minus 1 is 84. The 6 is multiplied by the x. If I want the 6 to go away, what's the opposite of multiply? So divide both sides by 6. And x equals 14. And that's all we were asked to find. Okay. So while you guys are writing, let me talk about this problem a little bit more so you understand how I set it equal to 85. So again, this is an example in geometry of how knowing the definition is how we start the problem. If you don't know the definition of bisect, then it's impossible to do this problem. You must know the definition of bisect. Bisect means that both sides of the angle are equal or congruent. Okay. So because I know that both sides of the angle are the same, I can just set 6x plus 1 equal to 85 because they have to be equal. That's what bisects means. Okay. Cool beans. And then you just work backwards, you solve for x, just like last semester. Yes, question. Because we already know that it's 85. Like, do you mean why didn't I plug the 14 back in or?
Like the 6x plus 1.
Uh-huh.
If 6x is 85, how come?
It's not. We're solving for x. We know that 6x plus 1 equals 85, but that doesn't mean I know what x is. So that's what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find x. So basically, I'm asking, what does x have to be so that this side will be 85 too? That's what we're trying to find. Okay. So we know it equals 85, but that doesn't mean I know what x is. Cool. It's like saying, I know that someone is 5'10", but I don't know how long their feet are or how long their legs are, right? We know the whole thing, but we're trying to find one piece. How long their feet are? Standing on tippy toes. Okay, next problem. Now, in this problem, we don't have a definition. There's no bisects. So really what we have to do is we have to read the problem and figure out what they're asking us to do. So given the measure of angle LKN is 145 degrees. Okay, solve for x. So the problem tells us in that first statement, LKN, so if you look at the angle, LKN, that's the whole thing. So this whole angle is 145 degrees. Okay, so what we know is that if I add up the two smaller pieces, they'll equal 145 total. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine like terms. So the left side of the angle is 2x plus 10. The right side is 4x minus 3. So let's combine like terms. I have 2 x's from the left side and 4 x's from the right side. So how many x's altogether? 6x. Very good. Okay, now let's do the numbers. I have 10 from the left side minus 3 from the right side. So 10 minus 3 is going to give us positive 7. Very good. And both of these together equal 145. Okay. So again, I add up the pieces and they add up to the whole thing. Okay. And now all I have to do is work backwards so that I can solve for x. Okay. So how do I do that? I have to subtract 7 from both sides first. Again, we're working backwards so that we can get x by itself. So 6x is now equal to 138. And now I need x to be alone, so I have to get rid of the 6. What's the opposite of multiply? Divide. So I divide by 6 on both sides. And x equals 138 divided by 6 is 23. Morning. Yep. There you go, kiddo. Okay. So again, for this problem, very straightforward. You add together the two pieces, you set it equal to the whole thing, and you just solve for x. And in this case, x equals 23. Okay. More. Have a good one. Any questions about that example? Yes.
I was gonna ask, can you post this slide?
Yep. Just this one slide?
No, like
Yeah, the whole thing, it's already posted. So the video will get posted, but also the notes for this are already posted. Before you come to class every day, I post the notes with the examples already worked out. Then after you come to class, I post the video.
Is that on the YouTube video?
Yes, it will be later today. Yeah.
Because I've never seen the notes that we do in class, so I can get in.
They're there every day. I'll show you where they're at. Okay. Okay, kiddos, we got 2 more examples and then we're done. Okay. Now we're bringing back these definitions. So hopefully you remember. Okay. So given that angle KLM is a straight angle. So, okay, let's talk about that. What does straight angle mean? Means 180. Find the measure of NLK. So NLK is this one right here. Okay. So basically what this is saying is if the whole angle is 180, they want me to find x and then plug x back in and find this one angle, NLK. Okay. So the first thing we have to do is we have to solve for x. Okay, so let's do that. These two angles, when I add them together, equal 180. Okay, so let's combine like terms. I have 10x from the left side and 4x from the right side. So how many x's altogether? 14x. Very good. Okay, I have -5 from the right side and +3 from the left side. Oh, switch those. Okay, so what's -5 plus 3? -2. That's okay. I've just combined these together, so they equal up to 180. Very good. Okay. And now that we have our equation, Pretty simple. I have to work backwards. So how do I get rid of -2? What's the opposite of that? So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So 14x comes down. 180 plus 2 is 182. Same steps for every problem, right? We're getting into this roll now. So how do I get rid of the 14? The 14's multiply. What's the opposite of that? Divide by 14. If you don't know this division off the top of your head, there's nothing wrong with that. Use a calculator. So x equals 182 divided by 14 is 13. Okay, easy peasy, plug it in. Now, I have x, but that's not what the problem asked me to do. The problem asked me to find the measure of NLK. So that means I have to plug x in to 10x minus 5. And that is my final answer. So 10 times, instead of x, what number do I use? 13. And then minus 5. 10 times 13 is 130. I minus 5 from that, and my final answer is 125. This is my final answer. Okay, so one more time, the steps on this problem are you solve for x, and then you plug the x in. Now, the only way you can solve for x on this problem is if you remember the definition of straight angle. Okay, so you do have to know that definition. Okay. We got one more and then we're done. One more problem. Okay, it's going to be very similar to this one. So I'm hoping you guys can really help me out with this. Okay, so last problem. It says, given that angle EFG is a right angle, let's stop and talk about that. Remind me, what does right angle mean? 90 degrees, very good. Find the measure of angle HFG. So they want us to find HFG, which is this angle right here. Remember, if you don't know what angle they're talking about, connect the dots, follow your pencil. HFG, that's this angle right here. Okay, so it's kind of the same steps as the last one. We add the two pieces together and we set it equal to 90. Okay, so let's combine like terms. If I have two x's from the top angle and one x from the bottom, how many x's total? So I have three x's, very good. I have 2 from the top and 1 from the bottom, 3. And what do I set it equal to? How do I know that I'm setting it equal to 90? What word in the question tells me that? Right angle. Right angle means 90 degrees. Okay, let's work backwards. How do I get rid of plus 3? Subtract 3. Very good. Subtract 3 from both sides. 3x comes down. 90 minus 3 is going to give me 87. Now to get rid of the 3, it's the opposite of multiply. So I divide by 3. Okay, x equals 87 divided by 3 is going to be 29. Okay, but am I done yet? No. The last step is I have to plug x in. So really easy, x plus 1, couldn't be easier than that. So instead of x, I write 29. I do the plus 1. And so my final answer is 30. This is the measure of angle HFG. Okay. So important things for angle addition postulate. You add together the small pieces, they equal the big piece. Okay. Every single problem. Sometimes you do have to know some vocab, but lucky for us, we do have a vocab list that you can use at any time. So make sure that when you look at these examples, you always think, do I need to know the vocab to do this problem? Okay. Any questions about the last example? Okay, looks like we're all good.